Hello, this is Sumicast. I'm Stephen Pitalo from Corporate Communications, and I'm talking with Vanessa Lafranchi from Sumitomo Corporation Brazil. She is a general counsel there. Thank you for being with us today, Vanessa.
Thank you for having me. It's a pleasure and an honor.
Where did you grow up?
In Sao Paulo, Brazil.
Really?
Yeah.
Okay. So were your parents from there?
Yes.
Well, okay, because you're Italian.
Oh, okay. So my grandparents from my father's side were Italian immigrants, which is very common in Brazil. We are a country of immigrants.
Okay.
That's what they say.
I know that the second largest population of Japanese people outside of Japan is Brazil also. So that would make sense that it's very multicultural down there.
Absolutely.
So you grew up there. Where did you go to school?
Okay, that's a good one.
Okay.
Because I studied in a Japanese school in Sao Paulo, not in the sense that the studies were in Japanese, but it was a school aimed at the Japanese community or their descendants, actually. So I think my relationship with Sumitomo started when I was 3 years old.
Wow. Okay. So take us to, as I understand it, you went to University of California, Berkeley.
Yeah.
But you also went to school in Sao Paulo as well.
Correct.
What was the progress there? How did that happen?
So in Brazil, we don't have the system of college, undergrad, and grad. Law school is a 5 years course. So I went to law school in Sao Paulo, Brazil. And when I was already practicing law for 12 years, I went to UC Berkeley for my master's degree.
Now, what made you decide at that moment to do that? Because it seems like you're pretty far into your career by then.
That's correct. So I needed to save money to pay for the tuition. So it took me a while. But also, I entered law school, I was very young, only 17 years old, and I studied in the night shift. My colleagues, usually they had already one degree, they were older than me, and I could notice that they enjoyed law school, or they could learn or make connections that as a youngster I couldn't. So I decided that when it was time for my master's degree, I wanted to be a mature person and professional to fully take advantage of it.
Now, before you went on to that next step, where were you working?
In private practice, in, I would say, mid-sized law firms in Brazil.
Okay. Now, as I understand it, you made an interesting transition from those private firms to corporate law. Can you tell me a little bit about that?
Yes. So my specialization is mergers and acquisitions. I worked my entire career in it. And the truth is, there is so much about every area of law in every single M&A transaction that you have a very broad education. So I explain, when we are interested in acquiring a new company, we start legal due diligence to understand the legal health of this company. If they have issues in labor law, we have to address those issues in the share purchase agreement. If they have tax issues and so on and so forth. So we need to dive into the problems. Most importantly, we need to help the company to overcome these issues once the acquisition is performed. So throughout the years, and we are talking about 20 years, I was in contact with different areas of law, which prepared me to be a corporate lawyer. Because nowadays, whatever comes our way, we have to deal with it, right?
Absolutely. See, this is the part where we cut out. So to talk about Brazil and the United States and even Japan, what are the skills that you have acquired that help you to make those transitions in a cross-cultural environment?
Sure. So I firmly believe every success or failure in relationship can be attributed to communication. So I believe that communication within a team with your subordinates, communication across teams in the organization, communication with the counterparty when you're negotiating an agreement. So everything boils down to communication. And I believe my role in the company to some extent is to build bridges. I deal with highly technical aspects, but our leaders, they make decisions about these technical aspects. So I have to bring these concepts to them in an easy to understand way, accurate way, and make them feel comfortable enough with whatever I send their way to make an informed decision. So to some extent, I am a lawyer, but I'm also a communicator.
Going back a little bit, what was it that drew you to the legal field in the first place?
Okay, so I think from the beginning, I liked very much reading and studying and logical reasoning, connecting concepts. I was somehow driven to the legal profession. And again, I entered law school very young, but I think I made a good decision in the end. I'm happy with it. And that's how I made this final decision.
Let's talk about what it is you do.
Okay.
When within the corporate structure of this, we have our Sumitomo Corporation of Americas, North America, South America, Latin America, and in Brazil, in the legal department where you are, what, say, is a typical day like for you? What are some of the challenges that you deal with on a daily basis, would you say?
Okay, so first of all, I would say there's no typical day. Actually, I never have a dull day.
Okay.
No day is like the other because we have, unlike America, I know, but that has so many more investments than Brazil, but we do have a diverse investment in Brazil. So there is one day that the infrastructure group requires assistance with the regulatory framework of water treatment and sewage treatment. The next day, our agribusiness guys, they need some assistance with distribution agreements. And then the next day, we are talking about cosmetic ingredients, the other iron ore mining. So it's very diverse. But in any case, if we forget about the industries and talk about the work, we assist M&A transactions. So every step of it, we help our colleagues selecting the law firm that will assist us in that specific endeavor. And then we help the negotiation of the agreements, review of those agreements. We work in the legal due diligence and the antitrust concentration submission to the authorities. Now, every sort of agreement comes our way, either drafting or reviewing. We have the litigation aspects as well, labor law, working closely with our HR department. We have regulatory aspects and all sorts of legal opinions and instructions our colleagues need.
Okay. When it comes to Brazil law and law in the United States, I imagine sometimes it gets complicated because obviously everything isn't the same. How do you deal with making sure that the areas that you're covering in Brazil are also going to translate in the United States and not sort of have problems once it leaves the country in some cases?
Very good. So, we are talking about completely different legal systems. We have the civil law and the common law, right? In the US, common law, in Brazil, civil law, South America as a whole, civil law as well. So here comes again the concept of building bridges. So fortunately, because I studied in the US, I know the concepts that are similar to those in civil law, or if there is nothing that I can compare, then I need to find out a way to explain. But again, that's what I'm talking about when I say I'm almost a translator,
Understood. And if I'm putting you on the spot, let me know when I ask this question. But what would you say is the one fundamental difference between the legal system of Brazil and the legal system of the United States? Maybe something that comes up over and over again that's a big difference.
Okay, I think labor law is dramatically different
Really?
in Brazil and in the US.
How so?
Brazil is very protective of employees, so we don't have much leeway to handle salaries or benefits. If we want to change them, we are in a tight spot. We have what they call an acquired right. So I think it's a big difference.
Wow. Okay. How do you strike a balance in legal between supporting the growth of these businesses, but making sure that they are following all
The legal ends of it to a T.
Okay. I take pride in being an enabler for the business teams. So my role here is to make things happen under structured alternatives. I'm not here to say no. I'm here to tell them how we can do what they want in a certain manner that we either eliminate or mitigate risks. Because in the end of the day, we need to identify which risks we are willing to take in order to achieve whatever the goals we think are the most important for us at that very moment. So in this sense, I believe my role is to make things happen under a controlled risk environment.
As a legal counsel, sometimes you have to balance the business goals with the strict letter of the law. Imagine that can be a challenge, but at the same time, you want to be pro-business and be supportive of the growth.
How often do you have to talk to the business people, very straightforward, saying, this is not a guideline, this is a law that you must follow?
So how do you balance those things?
Okay, it happens. It does not make me the most popular person when it happens. It really hurts my heart, but it's my role. And in the end, I need to protect the company. So yes, there are certain moments that we reach this, let's say, this wall in which I say it's not a suggestion, but we definitely cannot move in this direction, at least like this. But fortunately, it does not happen frequently. Yeah, and when it happens, I have the great support of the leadership in the sense that they know if I am saying this, it's because I have exhausted every other alternative, and we really can't do it differently.
Your work with HR, I know, it's very meaningful to you.
What do you think, being a woman in your position in this leadership, what do you think that brings to the table? What are the areas that you are really passionate about continuing to grow?
Okay, of course, we need to be good lawyers. That's why we are here. But I think we women, we can bring to the table, as you mentioned, an ability to read the room. Because when we started here, we talked about communication, right? And building bridges. So if you have this perception of what your counterparty really wants in this negotiation, what is effectively upsetting your subordinate and that's not being said, the ability to read the room is something that, in combination with your technical ability, translates into, I believe, emotional intelligence, and that makes you effectively thrive in your capacity as a professional.
So I'm sure that there are some very unique cases that you've had to work on in the legal department down in Sumitomo Corporation Brazil. Can you tell me a little bit about some that kind of stick out?
Yes. So I have to say that I worked in some of the messiest M&A transactions ever, because we used to work for this interesting case of insect protein. And all the way we were talking about larvae
I remember that
feed out of trash. So what? And then nowadays we are working with another case in which they are willing to produce biogas out of cow manure. And I am like, when are you going to call me to handle, I don't know, wine planning merger, of these different wedding planners, I don't know, or cakes, something cute. But I work with whatever comes our way, right?
Yeah, I'm sure the diversity has its positives and its negatives.
Definitely.
One day it's manure.
Yeah, no, to be fair,
Yeah.
I just finished one transaction about fragrances.
Ooh, okay.
So, yeah.
That's great. So when you work for private practice, it seems like it's a different set of everything from working for legal department in a corporation. Can you tell me a little bit about that transition that you had to endure and prevail?
Of course. So my perspective on the role of a lawyer in private practice and another one in-house lawyer evolved a lot throughout the years. So when we were in law firms, we would be specialists. So we would study hard to know everything about a single subject. And then we would talk to general counsels and we would have this impression that they know a little bit of everything, but they do not know quite sufficient enough of anything. And then I would say to myself, I will never be in this position. It's not for me, because I wanted to be excellent in what I did. But then maturity came and I understood that there are different paths to excellence. So now I see that those general counsel, they have to have a broad experience. They have to be confident enough to point their internal client to the right direction, no matter what is thrown their way, up until they understand that's the moment to bring the expertise of an outside counsel. But the emergency has already been handled internally, and you need to know your way in different areas of law, sometimes in different industries, to be able to adequately provide your internal client with this kind of support. So now I see I have another way of pursuing excellence.
I see. Now, was that process a difficult one because of the challenges, one after another, sort of a learning curve once you go from private practice to corporate? Or was it many cases that I've seen this before, so I think I can do a little bit better for this company?
I think it was a learning curve. It was a gradual procedure. It was not from one day to the other. or traumatizing or anything. I was still in private practice, and I started understanding that this was interesting as well and challenging, and I started longing for it. And that's when I finally decided to make the move. But when I did the move, I found out new things as well. For instance, when you are in private practice, your client brings the problem and you offer them solutions and you go home. You don't have to pick your choice, and nowadays, one of the things that I can tell you is the heaviest in my position is the responsibility of looking at the CEO in his eyes and say, listen, we have 5 alternatives, but my experience, my training tells me that we should choose this one. And you are always afraid that it's not the best one or that it looks good now, but you don't know down the road. So it's a big responsibility and I don't take it lightly. And at the same time, even though sometimes it's heavy, it's very fulfilling when you see the outcomes. So I really enjoy it.
Vanessa, thank you so much for being with us today. We really appreciate you letting us know a little bit more about Brazil, about legal, about your experiences. It's been great having you.
Thank you so much for the invitation.